Hey guys, this is part 4 in my video series that is my cube collection. We've already talked about 2x2s, 3x3s, 4x4s, so that means it's time for 5x5s. Alright, so let's get started. First I'll talk about my pillowed QJ 5x5. Now I also have the pillowed QJ 4x4 as you saw in my 4x4 video. This one's interesting. My brother has a QJ 5x5. Now this is the, I guess the full-size 5x5. It's the same size as a Rubik's brand 5x5 and the regular QJ 5x5. So it's a pretty big 5x5. It's bigger than the V Cube, I think. Yeah, by a bit. But it's pillowed down. Now what QJ does when they do these puzzles is they take a normal size one and just shave the outsides down. That's a little bit different from how V-Cube makes at least their 7x7 because the outside edges are bigger so that it won't pop. But because of that, once it's shaved down, the corner piece is about the same size as an inner cubie. On this one, however, the corner piece is about a quarter the size of an inner cubie. You see how small that is? So that means this whole top layer is really tiny. It's about half the thickness of a normal layer. And so because of that, it's hard to grab this outer layer, and it also tends to get locked up really easily because the pieces are so small. But other than that, the turning's great. The two-layer turns are fantastic. The top layers aren't bad if everything's aligned right and they don't lock up, but the problem is they do tend to lock up a lot. One neat thing about QJ 5x5s is that, now look, I'm not holding on to it anywhere, and I can turn the second layer without turning the top layer as long as I don't touch it. I know that means that the top layer has a lot of friction on it, and that's no good, but that's just kind of neat that you can just be like, well, some layers won't do it, but yeah, I think that's fun. Other than that, though, this is not a bad 5x5. It's a little weird because of the outer layer, but it's more of a novelty than anything. But I kind of like having it. My brother has a regular cubic QJ 5x5. His has been thoroughly broken in with Vaseline and used for a while, and his is actually really, really good. It is a little loose and it tends to lock up a lot. One common problem is that these center corner pieces tend to get twisted sometimes when you're turning. See if I can force that. I don't know how to force it, but see how it's starting to turn there? Well, I guess it's the wrong piece, but they'll start to turn and then you got to sort of like wiggle it and turn them around. So it's not a very high quality, stable, structurally sound puzzle, but his is pretty fast and it's pretty snappy. So next, I guess I'll talk about my Shengshao 5x5. Now this one's pretty sweet. Like all, it has a, it's like all Shengshao puzzles. It's very fast, very easy to turn. It has that stereotypical Shengshao feel. It can cut corners a little bit, but it's all in all, it's a great 5x5. It's really easy to turn. It's really quick, really fast. It's a lot of fun to solve, and it's one of my favorite 5x5s. It's just a great feel. It's very soft, very light. Shengshao puzzles are a little bit small. They're a little bit smaller than a normal size 5x5, which you can see in this cubic, excuse me, pillowed QJ one. They're a little bit smaller than a V-Cube one. This is the V-Cube one. So they're pretty tiny. They're not as small as an Ishin, but they're close. So they're in between a V-Cube and an Ishin. But they're great. I've also got a Ghost Hand 5x5, which is the exact same thing as the Shengshao 5x5. And then they're the exact same shape, they have the exact same colors, the stickers are the exact same size. Everything about these puzzles is the exact same. But they're pretty good. I would definitely recommend this. I think my Shengshao one is, I think it was like $5 or $10 for the Shengshao 5x5. And the Ghost Hand one was about the same, I think. And they're great 5x5s. They're definitely great if you're looking for a 5x5 you can afford, because the Rubik's one's like $25 or $30. The V-Cube one's $31. But these are 10. And they're great. They're awesome. They're almost as good as my V-Cube 5. They're way better than a Rubik's 5. They're better than Ishin 5. They're just awesome, awesome 5x5s. They're very light, very smooth, very easy to turn. And they're just fantastic puzzles, just like every other Shengshao puzzle. Now this is my Ishin 5x5. Now it's the exact same size as an Ishin 4x4, 6 centimeters to a side. I believe the V-Cube 5 is 6.6 centimeters to a side, which, if you remember, is the exact same size as a standard size 4x4. But anyways, enough of the 4x4s. This is a really good 5x5, just like all Ishin puzzles. It's a very high quality, very well put together, very structurally sound. It's very easy to turn. The turning is extremely smooth and extremely light for any of the layers. It's the exact same for all the layers. One thing to notice is this is a very small puzzle. The Sheng Shao is smaller than a V-Cube, which is smaller than a Rubik's, and this is smaller still. This is the smallest 5x5 I know of. But it's super smooth, super quick, and super light and easy to turn. The only problem is it will not cut corners at all. Because of just how Ishin's puzzles are constructed, they just don't cut corners. So that's one downside of this puzzle that really takes it out of the running from my favorite and best 5x5. But it's definitely a fantastic puzzle for anyone to get. It's very smooth, very great. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable how light and fast this is. The stickers are pretty good quality. They haven't really started to peel or fade, but the edges are getting a little rough, and so like you can feel it. It's not very smooth anymore. It starts, you know. But other than that, they're very bright, very colorful. Again, Ishin uses purple. It's like a purplish pink. So yeah, but this is a pretty high quality, pretty well constructed puzzle. If it could cut corners, it'd be fantastic. Now this is the promo edition YJ 5x5. If you have watched my 4x4 video, you know my story with the YJ promo edition 4x4. This is no different. In fact, this is actually even worse. Just like the promo edition 4x4, this is modeled after the Ishin mech. It's the exact same puzzle. It has the normal YJ stickers, but the turning is just awful. It locks up all the time. It's super loose. It's not held together very well. Completely different than the Ishin. It's like an opposite of the Ishin, even though it's the same mechanism. It locks up all the time. It's not smooth. It's rough. It's not very well put together. And I've also lost a piece for it, so now I can't really use it. So I keep it in the Ziploc bag, which is why it's in there. This is super cheap, and it's super not worth the money. If you want, yeah, it's a knockoff of the Ishin, but it's nowhere close to being as good. The Ishin is a pretty sweet 5x5, and this one's just not. I have yet to solve this without it holding together. No, I have yet to solve this without it popping. It pops on me every time I solve it, and that's why I'm missing a piece, because it popped on me one time, and I just collected the pieces up, and I was too frustrated with it to put it together there, because I had just put it back together. So I just bagged it up, and I did it later, and when I did it later, I realized I must have missed that one piece. But I can't say enough bad things about this puzzle. The YJ 4x4 and 5x5 promo editions are awful. Instead, just like with the 4x4s, the YJ has another line of 5x5, except instead of it being called Speed Edition, like the 4x4, this one's called Museum Piece Edition. And that is this puzzle. It is still a YJ. It's a 5x5, but it's bigger than the Ishin-sized puzzle. I know you can't see that. The bag makes it hard. I just don't want to lose a piece, but it is bigger. It's, in fact, the same size as a V-Cube 5. And that's no coincidence, because like the higher edition 4x4, it's modeled after the V-Cube mechanism. So this puzzle is not great, but it's a hell of a lot better than this one. It's way better. The turning is light and easy. Two-layer turns, fine. It can cut corners a little bit, not much. It does not get locked up nearly as much. The only problem is because it's a lower quality puzzle, the pieces are not molded to the same standards as the normal V-Cube, so it's very loose, and it definitely pops pieces quite often, and those center ones, like on the QJ ones, can get all twisted. So is this a great 5x5? No. But it is light years better than the promo edition 5x5. So if you want a V-Cube, if you want a YJ 5x5, get the Museum Piece 5x5. It's really not that expensive. Mine was $26, which is cheaper than the V-Cube. So even though the V-Cube's better, this is cheaper. But I gotta say, if you want a cheap, good 5x5, get the Sheng Shao. If you want an awesome 5x5 and you don't care how much it costs, get the V-Cube. The only reason you would get this is because you were collecting. Oh, and there we go. A piece popped. It happens all the time. But yeah, the only reason you would get this piece is if, like me, you just want to collect them. But it isn't the worst 5x5 in the world. It's not bad. It's just there's really no reason to get it. If you want a cheap one, get the Shengshao. If you want a good one, get the V-Cube. This is like a happy medium. Like, it's not that cheap, but it's not that expensive, and it's not that good, but it's not. I mean, it's pretty good. It's just not as good as the V-Cube, and it's only $5 cheaper. But if you want to get a YJ5x5, definitely get this one. Stay away from the promo editions, and this one's really not bad. So if you want the full set, that's another reason. That's, you know, if you're collecting them, like I want to get the full set. I want to get the YJ2 through 3. I have the good 4x4 and the good 5x5, and I want the 6, 7, and the 9. But it's not awful. It's just not that good. Finally, I have my V-Cube 5. Now, this is my favorite 5x5 puzzle, and I just recently put a set of CubeSmith full brights on it, so it has the super duper bright pink and green and orange and all that. This puzzle is fantastic. This was my first 5x5. I got really lucky with that. I was able to get a V-Cube 5 as my first one, and it's amazing. I've had it the longest. It's really well broken in. But V-Cubes are just really high quality puzzles. The turning is great. It never locks up. It is always really smooth. It does not take much force to turn. I have modded this a little bit. I shaved off the bumps on the inside so it doesn't have that clicky feel. It's still slightly there, but it's not nearly as bad as it is out of the box, especially on the 2-layer turns. That's very smooth. But it's just a great 5x5. It cuts corners, it's snappy, and I have lubricated it with Vaseline, and I think that helped break it in faster, and I have since washed all that out and re-lubricated it with Jigaloo, and so now it's super fast, super quick, super snappy. The turning is just really smooth and light and easy and held together well. It doesn't lock up. It doesn't really pop that often. You can cut corners okay for a 5x5. It's a really great 5x5. It's definitely the best out there. There's no question about that, in my opinion. But yeah, so this has been my 5x5s. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for my next video, which will be about my 6x6s.